I guess we're going to take our own advice from last week when God tells us so many times throughout the Bible, hundreds of times, to fear not. Do not fear. Do not fear. He is with us. So we're going to do this without fear, right? Okay, April,
Yeah.
because that's your name, and I'm Robert. We never introduce ourselves.
Well, we used to, but
Yeah,
we stopped.
when we did the audio,
We got too comfortable.
when we did the audio in our pajamas, but now we're on
Those were
camera.
the days. I know you guys should have seen what I was gonna wear before I got on this, but
She was
Robert
a-
was like, "You cannot wear that." I'm like, "But it's so comfortable."
She was about to wear some pajamas on here. I'm like,
Basically, they're
I'm
not
like,
pajamas. They were kind of workout clothes. Well, they're kind of pajamas.
we're not audio anymore. We're on video.
I know, but they were comfy.
Oh,
We were gonna do it. Our last topic that we did was on fear. I was showing no fear with my outfit choices, which is hard for me. You should know
I
this.
would have had the fear.
I know, but you know how I am about that kind of stuff. So you should have been surprised that I was willing to be that.
I don't know how this just came up.
I know,
How we're
it's funny.
why we're talking about audio video. But let's keep the
Get
ball
with the
rolling.
program.
Let's keep the ball rolling from last week.
Okay.
And last week we talked about fear.
Yeah.
Fear not.
Faith over fear, folks.
And painting tips, right? But and you all know what I
And
mean.
choices.
If you didn't watch, you guys didn't watch that episode. If you guys didn't watch that episode,
You
go
should watch
back.
it.
Go back to last week's. We'll put it in the recommended videos at the end of this one. And we talked about painting. So I think you all know what I meant by that.
I hope you did. If not, you can message us later.
So anyway, how are they going to message us?
Via on
Facebook?
Yes, our When Rocks Talk Facebook page.
And we have an email.
We have an email, whenrockstalk at
We have
hotmail.com.
we have comments turned off for YouTube because we
Don't need that kind of stuff in our
we
life.
don't need drama. You either take what we say or you don't.
You don't have to like.
Speaking of that, we encourage everybody to every word that we are saying. Don't just take it for what it is. This is our coming from experience, what we've learned over the years, and what God tells us. If you question it, we want you to question everything we say and look it up for yourself.
And
Look
I'd
it
say
up.
start in the Bible.
Yeah,
Don't look it up in articles online because
yeah.
not
And,
at least
now
well,
if
you
do,
can, but
now if you do look it up online, look up an article, go beyond the headline. The headline is
misleading often.
is the fear.
Yes.
Go down. Yeah, it's misleading. Scroll down. Eventually, somewhere in the article, you're going to get a piece of truth that will contradict the headline
Yeah. Well,
Right?
unless it's a really good article, then
most of the time.
well, anyway.
So, yeah, tread carefully
Yes. Do the research.
and don't be easily influenced
Yes.
by us or articles or anybody.
Yes.
Please be influenced by the Bible, though.
By God, for sure.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
let's carry on from last week. And you didn't know I was going to talk about this. I just brought it up. But we're going to talk about some of the areas of what the world is currently pushing, like hard on people, and the lies that they're telling, and the influence, and what other words?
I don't know.
Exactly. So we want to speak on that, and we want to talk about some of the things we are against because God is against it. Right? We're against it because God is against it. And when we talked about fear last week, some people are afraid to speak out against this stuff, even though they don't agree with those things that we're about to speak on.
Or they think that they feel that there is something wrong with them, but they can't quite put their finger on what it is, but they do believe that it's wrong. There are some people out there.
And I guess we're going to take our own advice from last week when God tells us so many times throughout the Bible, hundreds of times, to fear not. Do not fear. Do not fear. He is with us. So we're going to do this without fear, right? So some of the areas we're going to, what's the first one? Let's talk about abortion. Okay?
We touched on this with our interview with
A couple weeks ago.
yeah, with Heather a couple weeks ago, Heather Fry Blanton, and touched on how impactful it was and how her sister was pressured into getting an abortion, but thank the Lord that she didn't end up doing it. So we did touch on that, and it's of course continually being pushed on almost every front via media, via the government, in your own home, doctor's offices, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it's constantly. And I think what frustrates me the most about that, although it's horrible and it's wrong, and that's what we believe, is that it's being forced. I think that people that are the ones, say that we have all these choices and yet we feel like it's getting pushed on us. And that I think is a struggle. Like, how do we deal with that? They're playing with our emotions. They're,
Instilling fear.
Yeah. And a narrative.
Instilling fear in a way that some would argue, well, what about when the mother's life is in danger? Okay. So
I understand that.
So we are against it, period. Against abortion, period. But okay, let's give some people the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, in that case, then what you do is what you're going to do is what you're going to do. But to use that argument that what about when the mother's life is in danger? Okay, what's the percentage of abortions take place because of that issue? What about all the other issues? All the other 99% of the issues? How do you back those up? Well, the mothers, their life is now ruined because now they have to take care of a child and they can't move on with life. They can't succeed and can't go to college, and it's going to interfere, right? Well, how about what you just said? And I say this, that people actually say this. Well, they can't take care of a child. In that, you're admitting that it is a child. That it is.
Well, I mean, if you want to go that way, I mean, you talk about. I mean, I could.
Sorry, I just wherever my mind goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that there are laws out there that if a woman is killed a pregnant woman is killed in a car accident, then the baby and the mother it's considered a double homicide. Let's just go into that. Okay, here's the problem. Then where does the line drawn? Where is the line drawn with a right for when is it a human? And that goes back. There's so much we could go into. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but there are a lot of conflicting, honestly, moral questions that we need to be asking. But honestly, Robert, it comes all down to one thing, and that is where we stand fundamentally with what God says. Because you can do and you can pick apart everything you want to about abortion. We could even say, well, it starts here, or it starts there, or it does this, or it does that. But honestly, what it really comes down to is there's the world and there's God, and they're always going to be an enemy of each other. It's just the way it's going to happen. So we could cut the chase, get to that. People are not following God. They're choosing something else.
You
just pull it apart.
I was going to cut you off a second ago to make that point that you just made. So you made my point.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, because it just shows that we're in agreement.
In sync on that, yeah.
These topics, like with abortion, is hard to have with people who are for it and people who are against it, because there's not that common denominator that we can argue all day long, and we're not going to come to an agreement if we value life or the lack of life two different ways, right?
Yeah.
What is life? And if you can't agree on that, what's the point of even having this argument? What's the point of us even recording this right now? But let's keep going.
Well, and I think again, it's what I've seen is it's not just with abortion, but other topics going on with with gender confusion, with these types of things that are happening. That honestly, what I get frustrated about the most is that the world, the society, it's playing with the emotions of our vulnerable, with our children, with young children whose minds are not fully developed.
That's the part that gets me the most.
And that makes
you're messing with the children.
And that bugs me so much.
A millstone around your neck and be thrown
Yeah,
into the sea.
I know. And that's the thing. We have to be, that is what has been on our hearts lately as well, is just knowing. I mean, there are things that are being put in place right now in the government that are keeping parents from being parents. The government is raising the child, or they will.
There
if
are
we
many
put things away.
instances that over the years that the people in government positions have said, and again, I encourage people to do their own research, because there's a lot of things they don't tell you, they don't put in the media, that you have to find for yourself, and the things so they suppress the truth, and they feed lies.
Oh, they oppress the truth givers.
And so,
For real.
what was I going to say? That there's many that have quoted and said, these are our children.
Yes.
Our children, the government says about your children.
Yeah.
No, that's my child. Actually, it's God's child.
Yeah.
I'm the caregiver. And that's where it ends.
Yes.
Like, the government can just stay out of it. This is between God and me and my child. Right?
Yes.
And they're pushing that parents don't know how to make the correct choices when it comes to their children, but they do. I'm like, you know what I mean? No
Well,
way.
I know, and you could totally go along this path of the way that the government has made things easier or more convenient for people has enabled parents themselves to get lazy with parenting, and they allow students or education systems to put ideas into the children's head, and that is on us. You know, that we have stood back and let that happen. I think that's the key thing. It should be, if anything, you guys, this should be our call to stand up, to get involved, and to be the light in a world that is covered in darkness.
Now, what does that mean? Like, how do you get involved? There are different ways to get involved. The easiest one that people go to is protest or boycott, right? Now, that is one way. That's one way if you do it correctly.
You have the right to do that.
Do it where it makes sense. Don't just
And lovingly,
don't
you
go
guys.
around and start
Let's
looting, stealing Nikes and burning buildings down. That says nothing for what you're standing
Well,
up for.
it just shows disrespect.
Yes. There's ways of doing it.
We can respect
But-
ourselves and do the right and
But
stand up for what's right.
ultimately, it begins in the home. To parents out there, it begins in the home. The world is pushing lies, transgenderism, abortion, and there are so many other areas right now that are quite popular. But they're pushing this on not only us, but our children, right?
And to what end?
They're indoctrinating them, right? So the best way to fight against is, because they're going to keep doing it. Now, we might be able to push back a little and cause them to slow down a little bit, but this is always going to exist. It's always existed, and it's always going to exist. It's just right now it's more prevalent. Right now it's really infiltrating the home, right? So, just having said that, what we need to do as parents, the very first thing is it starts in the home.
A line of defense.
Teach your children
And
good morals,
and the way that they should go.
the way that they should go. Teach them the ways of the Bible and what God says.
I think you're going to say the ways of the force. That was funny.
It is. It is. The Bible is a force.
To be reckoned with, for sure.
So it starts there. Do your thing at home, and you stand a better chance over anything.
And I would
over any kind of protest, you stand a better chance.
And I would say that I think we should be, and I've been pushing this lately, we should hold ourselves accountable, and we should hold ourselves to a high standard. How are we to be like other people, or how are we to do the right thing if we look like everyone else in the world that's doing the wrong thing? So I think there's a time and a place, but we should also look back and say, why is the world this mess right now? Well, partly it's because we haven't done enough. I say, turn it on ourselves, check our hearts, be like, why is this happening? It's because I wasn't brave enough. I didn't stand up when I need to. I didn't follow God's call, whatever it is. And then when you have that spirit of reflection and be like, oh, wow, I let this get this way.
Because God gave us a spirit of love, not of fear.
Yeah. When we can actually acknowledge our problem, our part in doing this or in causing this in a way, by basically apathy and complacency, then we can go in with a humbleness and a gentleness in our spirit that will not give the Lord a bad name, but instead it will shine a light on those things that are trying to give God a bad name.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I said this is infiltrating our homes.
Mm-hmm.
It's even infiltrating the church.
Mm-hmm.
In the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really got to be on guard
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
We were just talking
Even
about
where
being watchmen.
even where we
Yeah.
feel the safest,
Mm-hmm.
where we think everything's just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you got blinders on, then yeah, maybe it is just fine.
Well,
but it's not.
And the Bible says that we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. And that's the thing. And that's actually what one of our pastors was
spiritual
talking about.
warfare.
It's spiritual warfare. And I think that's a very key because, you know, seeing it, like thinking that we can just battle it out physically, fisticuffs, you know, face to face. It doesn't work like that. It's so much more deeper and pervasive than we can even imagine. And that is why we have to constantly be on guard and be aware that this is happening. This is going on. Praise God that he'll have the win in the end, but it's still going. And while we're in the midst of it, what are we going to do about it?
I think that's the best way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
That this is a war.
It's not against the souls.
Yeah, they're
it's
obviously
against the things that are that are causing the confusion. It's against the darkness.
There obviously is a war out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are, like what we're talking about right now, there are two sides,
Mm-hmm.
people for something and against something,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what side you're on or what
Mm-hmm.
the topic is or, you know, what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not so much the person
Mm-hmm.
that we're at war against.
We're not against
Or-
the person or the soul. That's not what we're in
It's-
war for the soul.
It's something unseen with the physical eye.
Mm-hmm.
It's spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
So now think of it this way: we're not fighting against what we see per se,
Mm-hmm.
but what's in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And to only know what's in the hearts is the spirit. You got to go into spiritual warfare.
Mhm.
It's a different kind of weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Just
yeah.
and just walking. I can just on our own in our own town, just walking the streets, like walking through the streets, looking around, or driving through town. You can see that spiritual warfare playing out for all to see, in the addictions that are through the roof. You know, the fentanyl issues. I mean, in the lack of fathers,
Mhm.
domestic violence, sexual abuse. I mean, multiple things are happening in full view of us. I mean, it's out in the open now.
Mhm.
And yet, of course, we can't just tackle it with more regulations and more this and more that because it's not going to do anything. What we have to do is something much more deeper. What we have to do is love like Christ loved us. That's the only way that we can combat this, is not by going to arms, like as in take weapons, real weapons, but to actually go and love them in their struggles, in their messes. Sit down beside them, tell them that they're loved. They don't have to have this or that as their identity. It is all dependent on the relationship with God, where they will find their peace, and that is only it.
What a weapon that is, right?
It is the
Love.
ultimate weapon.
Love. What does God say about love? Like
Patient,
so.
it's kind.
No. Well, He says a lot of things about love. But that's not where I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was what I was thinking. But so we're talking about weapons.
Mm-hmm.
People, whether they're going to a right to bear arms. That's another issue.
Mm-hmm.
Firearms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we stand on one side. There's people who stand on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
People fight with physical firearms,
Mm-hmm.
physical weapons.
Mm-hmm.
They fight by protesting. They fight. There's so many ways, right? Some you got to be careful with. Some there's limits.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking, remember, spiritual
Yeah.
warfare, right? They can't be won with something physical.
No.
They can't be won with this.
Mm-hmm.
But love,
Mm-hmm.
like fight with love.
Mhm.
And then so what I was thinking about, what I was going to say is what God says about love, about the burning coals.
Oh yeah, heaping burning coals on your enemy's head or whatever. Yeah.
So if you fight them with love, it's like, how does it go?
It's like you're putting heaping coals on their head. I can't remember the rest of the verse, but
Yeah.
yes. But I think that's the thing, is it is love. That is the ultimate weapon. And the funniest thing about it is, like, we're not trying to come to an end where we're right. It's not about being right at all. Honestly, it's about keeping those people, like helping them find peace And it's hard in a world that is so covered with, so much evil.
Why would we be here right now? Why would we be fighting so hard? Why would we be on these mics if we did not care?
Well, there are some people, I will say, out there that they do it for their own means.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in politics all across the board, left, right, up or down. It's there, and it's not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, as we come on here, that is the thing, is that we want to love people, as I know it's cliche, love people to Jesus, but it's true, because that is who he is. That's who we want people to see. We want to be there in that mess with them and just be like, you know what? You are loved, and there is a peace, and there is a heaven. And, it's just...
when I was growing up, I would hear people say that, just the word, just the name Jesus.
Yeah.
Love one with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who do a mockery of it.
Mm-hmm.
You need Jesus, kind of, they use that term.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they really know what that means. And then the people on the receiving end of that don't like to hear that. They're like, oh, all this religious talk, you're a bunch of Ned Flanders. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that. That's make-believe. In the real world, you do need, it sounds cliche, but get into the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
God says so much.
Mm-hmm.
He covers everything, every topic in existence.
Mm-hmm.
He covers it.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do? Okay, if you're not a believer, how would you do that? How would you go about reading the Bible and heeding what it says?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, if you have to challenge God, do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to say, hey, God, if what is written in this book is true, show me. Mm-hmm. And go into it with an open heart. Don't go into it already with the preconceived notion that, nah, it's not real. Don't do it that way. Just go into it and be ready for what it has to say.
Mm-hmm. For stuff to be revealed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And
ask for it.
The only way we can deal with these kinds of things is to show love. No, we're not going to browbeat you down or Bible thump you, as you've said before, dear.
Sometimes I want to.
But we're going to love you, and we're going to... See, that's the thing, is we have to be... I know we hear the term, the safe places, but I think we need to be the one people turn to when they want the actual truth. They don't want their truth. They don't want the truth that the media gives them or the world gives them. They actually want the truth that brings the peace, the truth of Christ.
Oh, I thought you said what the media brings them.
And not what the media brings them.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's what I was saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. The peace, and what comes with that truth is the peace that passes all understanding. And once they get to that point, they have to get to that point. And when they get to that point, we have to be ready for them. We have to be there and be like, help them out of the muck. Be like this guy I believe it was in Jeremiah. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was. That he literally reached in and pulled Jeremiah out of this muck and pit that he was in. And he was there. He was there to show love and shower love on Jeremiah. And that man that did that was blessed by God and his whole family. But again, we're not doing this for the blessing, because...
You know why we do this?
It's because we love Christ.
No, well, yeah, yeah.
And we love others. We're supposed to love God and then love our neighbor.
But, so, this is one thing we've never talked about.
Okay.
On this...
on the visual one?
I don't think on the audio either.
Okay.
For the couple years we've been doing this, we've never talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, why are we doing this? Why do we do this?
Mm-hmm.
So, the name of our podcast is called When Rocks Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And we struggled. Now everybody's getting the inside scoop, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. If you miss this episode, you're going to miss out. So, the title of this podcast is When Rocks Talk. Years ago, when we were deciding to do this podcast, we were struggling with a name, a title. Mm-hmm. We knew our purpose, more or less. We still struggle with that as well. What we wanted to do, what we wanted to do on these mics. Mm-hmm. But once we came to a determination of why we were on here, we were just sitting talking, and we couldn't come up with a name. And then all of a sudden, what we were talking about had nothing to do with the title of this episode of this podcast, but what we're trying to accomplish and why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the title came.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. When Rocks Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell somebody.
I'll tell somebody. That's what we're supposed to do.
So let me learn you something, viewers.
Learn you something.
I'm going to give you the real story
DL.
on this. In Luke 19, I'm going to read something real quick, and this is going to explain it. So when he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd, and speaking of Jesus, when he comes down the mountain, the whole crowd of disciples begin joyfully praising God in a loud voice for all the miracles they have seen. So they're praising God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Pharisees, and I want to paraphrase some of this, but the Pharisees told Jesus pretty much, "Hey, can you tell your disciples to shut up? Like, we don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
This is not good." And Jesus told them, "I tell you, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many voices out there,
Mm-hmm.
or lack of voices,
Mm-hmm.
that are standing against the truth,
Mm-hmm.
standing against what the Bible has to say,
Mm-hmm.
what God has to say.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many silent, and that's how we came up with this. We were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough people talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about their political issues, and we get political sometimes because many issues that go against the Bible are political,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're kind of go hand in hand sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's too many podcasts out there that talk about political issues, who's right and who's wrong, and we're not trying to do that. We say question us. We tell
Mm-hmm.
people question us. Find out for yourselves what we have to say, and we screw up.
And
We're not
and
perfect.
think about our intent behind what we're doing, and that is our intent, like you said. When rocks.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is pretty much saying, if nobody else praises me,
Mm-hmm.
if everybody's silent,
Mm-hmm.
then the rocks will start crying out. The
Mm-hmm.
rocks will start shouting.
Yeah.
The actual rocks. He was talking about actual rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because who's left?
Yeah.
So we're like, we need to be those rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to speak up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah. For real. That's what we're trying to do. I mean, that's what we're wanting to do, is to glorify God. But not only that, one of the reasons why when you say when rocks talk, or when the rocks cry out, why God? Okay, so Jesus doesn't need praise. He doesn't need worship. He doesn't need any of that. But it is what we're called. We need to worship, and we need to glorify.
But shouldn't we? We
Exactly.
should want to.
But not only that, but when you think of when rocks talk, or when rocks cry out, what are we doing? We're testifying to the glory and who he is. We're being a witness so that others can hear us and see who God is. Like, that is why we're doing this. But also why we said when rocks talk instead of cry out, partly was because we don't want to be the ones shouting in your face, and we don't want to be the ones that
Although
are
I got to be careful sometimes, right?
yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
We want to be the ones that tenderly and lovingly show Christ. That's what we want, but with truth in there, and seasoned with salt, as the Bible talks about. And so that is why we did this, because we have to testify what God has done in our lives so that other people can see what God can do in their lives. And during that time frame, we felt like there was no middle ground. There was no place for people to go to, no welcome shore for someone to sit on and just listen to God talk.
Yeah.
And that was why we did what we did. And so, I mean, like, as we're going, we've had ups and downs, health issues, struggles, frustrations multiple times during this. And so we're coming out at a very vulnerable position as we're talking about this, because we don't like to share much about that, because
everybody's getting all the secrets.
But because we don't want to be a stumbling block. We don't want to be, keep you away from the truth. We want to make sure that we can guide you to the truth. So that's why we're,
Yeah.
this is why we do what we do.
I think we should leave it there.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm out of coffee. I just drank my last drink. So.
Shocker. And I did not drink any. Shocker.
So, yeah. I think next week or soon we'll give you one more inside scoop, one more secret. It has to do with our children, and that we're involved in the audio format of our podcast, that it's no longer a part of the video format. So if you go to our Spotify account, you're not going to find it on YouTube here. But if you go to our Spotify account, or watch us on Spotify, listen to us on Spotify. If you go far back enough, so if you see our logo, but you scroll far enough back, you'll see the logo change. It'll switch over, because that is when we stopped doing the audio and we started doing the video. So I wanted to leave that,
transition that.
Yeah, where you can identify the two.
Yeah.
Now, our children were involved in the original, in the audio version. So I might talk about that a little bit next week. It's fun. It's a fun thing. And maybe we'll insert that audio clip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We'll insert that in here. But in order to get that, you're going to have to watch next week. So I don't like to guilt people into watching our show.
Fine. No, I'm just kidding.
So speaking of that, since we're doing plugs here and we're shaming ourselves, click the like on this, share this video with somebody, but most importantly, subscribe to this. It's free. Subscribe to this podcast, and do it on Spotify as well if you can, because what that does is the more subscriptions we have, the more we can get out there. Our voice gets out there. It's like an algorithm, and it'll show up more for other viewers. So help us out that way. We would appreciate it.
Yeah.
And with that, we're outie.
No words
like
of wisdom
a belly
today?
button. Yeah, we are going to do a words of wisdom. You're going to read a verse.
I am.
As you always do.
Okay. I should make you read a verse. You read a verse earlier.
We'll find out what happens after this edit, how that goes. Stay tuned in the next 10 seconds to find out if it's April or I. But we are going to close out with words of wisdom. This is found in Ephesians 6:11. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil.
Bum, bum, bum. Thanks for watching. If you like this show, hit that free subscribe button and share this video. We are on Facebook and Instagram. Also, check out our full-length podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. The links are provided in the description below. Thank you.